Hey, business building warrior, welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio. Thanks for joining me for our weekend edition. If you're new around here, our weekend edition is simply when we go back in time to a successful student interview, one of our proven Amazon course students who's building a beautiful business, and we break down some of the best lessons and best moments from that interview. Because if you're like me, Saturday is the sixth day of the week, meaning, hey, it's another work day. Some of us work 6, rest 1. That's what God did when he created everything. So a lot of us follow that same model. I know I do. And Saturdays are quite often a day where you can grow your business, continue working on your business. And if that's you, we want you to take along our weekend updates. Well, today's episode is going to be one, like I said, where we interview a recently successful student. Maybe it's an episode that you missed and that sort of thing. We'll get to in just a moment. Thanks for the feedback, by the way. If you've been listening to our weekend updates, we really appreciate that. But we've got some big news. Here we are kicking off summer of 2023 as I'm recording this. And we've just launched a great new product that I want to tell you about. You can go to Proven Bot Sourcing and see all about it, as well as you can listen to the recent podcast episode where we really dove in and discussed this. It was podcast episode number 647, located not too far back in time before this episode that you're listening to now. Provenbotsourcing.com is a new strategy for scraping virtually any retail website and finding potentially incredible replan inventory to help you in your Amazon business. We've really broken it down. It's brand new content, stuff that's never been taught anywhere before. Yeah, there's some tools you might recognize in the mix, but there's a lot of new elements. I don't care how deep you've dug into replans, you have not seen the details that we've uncovered before. It took us months to test this. So go check it out at provenbotsourcing.com. That's the only announcement I'm going to drop on you for now, except one last little tiny mention. Our conference is coming up July 6th through 8th. Plan on being there. Theprovenconference.com has all details. VIP tickets are almost sold out. We're expecting about 600 plus people to descend on Columbus, Ohio, July 6th through 8th. That's listeners to this podcast. We'd love to have you there. We've got over 40 breakout sessions with the great coaches and success stories from our podcast. You're going to absolutely love it. If you can't be there in person, check out the live stream option. Very inexpensive. It gets you all of the event recordings as well as live interaction during the event with everyone who's there. Very inexpensive. Go check it out. Theprovenconference.com. We'd love to see you join us. Hey, let's enjoy today's weekend update. Here we go.
So our Amazon business, we then, it was time to go. And so we had to start going, and we had signed up and started an Amazon account previously. And as a newbie that maybe is trying to get into it, don't let your account go deactivated, because
if you set it up and don't do anything, they deactivate.
You just let it sit. Yeah. So was that a struggle getting it restarted again?
Yeah, we had to set up an appointment, and because we were ready to go. And so we went, we ran down to Walmart and bought the stuff that we found a few things that we could sell, and we were so ready and so excited. And then we get back and go to open up our account, and we had to get verified. And so we had to
wait 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was almost 2 weeks to set up an appointment. And then we had to do a video call, and they had to look at your ID.
Yeah.
All the things.
It felt very nerve-wracking. They wanted you to have all these documents. It really was not as big of a deal as we made it up to be in our head.
Yep.
Those little things that when you're new, they do feel like these huge mountains, to over.
That's the exact imagery I use. These little molehills in the rearview mirror feel like mountains when they're in your windshield coming at you, right? And just getting set up. Yeah, Amazon takes that process very seriously of verifying the identity of new sellers now. And that's how they weed out a lot of the bad actors, is make sure they're dealing with real people, not setting up fake spam accounts and that sort of thing. So you guys got through that process, and then you started picking up some momentum from there, it sounds like. Do you mind if we take a pause right here so I can keep everyone up to speed who might be hearing and not understand what it is you just said? When you send in, especially you feel it when you send in your first shipment, especially if you're getting started around Q4, the last 3 months of the year, when everything kind of slows down at Amazon. It takes Amazon time to receive your box of product, open it up, verify what it is, count it, decide what warehouse they want to stick it in, which means maybe shipping it somewhere else. It can take, the longest I've ever heard of is 6 weeks for your product that you've sent in to actually be up for sale in front of customers if you go the FBA route. And you guys were doing that. November, fairly busy shopping season. Amazon's a little understaffed. It takes 2-3 weeks at times, maybe even more. But if you want to ship the stuff yourself directly to a customer, merchant fulfill, or FBM, we call it, as opposed to FBA, FBM, fulfillment by merchant, you can put up for sale. We hear stories of people standing in the checkout line at a store buying hot products, and before they've even paid for them in their shopping cart, they're selling to customers on Amazon. So they get them home and ship them out that day. Just like if you were selling it on eBay, you're the one that does the shipping. So you guys found some hot Christmas items, and had you sent those in early December, they wouldn't even have been available for sale for 2 or 3 weeks. And we're at Christmas now. It's too late. But you merchant fulfilled those. And I love hearing the creativity of what you guys pulled off there. And so you got some decent results pretty fast. You guys, you got laid off in October. You guys got serious about it towards the end of October. Here we are. November's kind of the learning curve month, and you starting to send some stuff in. You're starting to see some results. I want to hear about some of the successes or maybe some of the failures too, because we've all had those failures. My list is super long of the things I've tried that have failed. And I love that I finally found something I can rely on. But talk us through that from your vantage point.
Okay, yeah. Well, so I definitely have an entrepreneurial spirit. I've been working and doing things, selling things probably since I could talk. I don't know. But, and as an adult, once we started having kids, I really wanted to be home. I worked at a spa and a salon. So, I worked part-time until I realized I just couldn't anymore once we had our third. And I wanted to be home. So I had, an Etsy business and then, selling handmade things, but that is so time consuming. So I was introduced to a direct sales, multi-level marketing company. Actually, I think I had kind of dabbled in a few previously. I've done a total of 7. So I added it up last night and I was like, wow. The majority of my time I spent 5 years with one. I don't know if you want me to say names or anything, but
probably best if we don't.
It's probably not necessary. So people who are, anybody who watches this will know some of the things I did because, you post on social media. But
sure.
Anyway, so it was appealing because I wanted to stay home. I could do it from home. And, and with each one, there's a lot of regrets that I have, not really regrets, but mostly what I've come to is that everything, I gained experience and not regret. That wasn't the right word. Just looking back, like if I had been introduced to something like we're doing now, I feel like it was a lot of wasted time, but then I reframed my mindset of it's not wasted time because everything I did brought me to where we are today. And it's just part of my experience.
Jim Rohn says, you can focus on the loss or you can focus on the lesson. Ultimately, those were lessons learned and they're valuable lessons and relationships. I'm sure there's still some great friends you've made through this business. But definitely. There's something about having your own business. This is our business. This is our thing. Versus being part of that structure and having to be a cheerleader for something that's benefiting the people above you and below you and the whole network. Because I did 3 or 4 of those, it's been 20 years since I touched any of them. And I'm pitched these all the time. You can imagine a guy that's got a podcast with 120,000 downloads a month, listeners on iTunes. And dude, you could get such a great downline, right? I'm approached constantly. But when I look at it through the lens of what's the experience going to be ultimately for the majority of the people that I expose this to, just the whole industry doesn't have a great track record. Am I saying there's no good ones out there? No. Am I saying it's a bad idea? Not necessarily. But I would rather use my influence to help people launch their own thing.
Yes.
I'm all in on that. They own it. It's just them. Sink or swim based on your work. And then put you in a community of other people doing the same thing. But there's no downline. There's no structure. There's no people above you, below you getting paid for the work that you're doing. It's your business. So yeah, I can appreciate that. And I'm very familiar. And there's some of the best training, sales training and business training is in those companies. But I'm not a fan of the model. Just not. And I lost that about 20 years ago after kind of going through 3. And most of them end up closing their doors suddenly and surprisingly.
Yeah.
leaving the whole bottom half of the structure kind of wondering what just happened. It happens too often.
I know. Yeah. And on that note, I mean, all those points, like, great training, great people. And I really, I would always get to a point in my business that I couldn't ever get people to the point where I was. And I wasn't ever like the top of the company. And at one point I was the top 2%, but I wasn't making very much money. And I thought, well, if this is the top 2%, like this is just, I mean, I don't know. So, but I couldn't help people, even make $500 a month or $1,000. And it was like, the more my organization grew, the more I was working, but the less I was making time wise, and so
yeah,
this stopped making sense and I got burnt out. And then I joined another one and then thought, well, if I start a new one, it'll be different. And in the beginning, they have all these flashy bonuses. Like if you do this in the first 3 months, you get a $10,000 bonus or whatever. So in 2021, we had heard about the podcast, we'd been listening, and I was like, I was with a business, but I wasn't ready to let it go because it was what I knew. And like you said, the onboarding and the learning curve of something new is a very, a period of intense focused effort and energy. And so I wasn't ready for that. And he was working and we weren't in need. Like we had dreams and goals that we wanted to get to, but it wasn't like we were desperate. Got pregnant in 2021 and I was like, we need to get this going. That would be so awesome to have you home by the time the baby gets here. And then I had decided to leave the company that I was with. With homeschooling and a new baby coming, it was time for me just to step back altogether and just focus, and I said, when we get Amazon going, that's something that we can do together. And that was kind of our plan. And it got sped up, but our plan was to work it slowly, and have him retire, go part-time. And then it just was like, well, I guess we're just diving in.
The October surprise, right?
Yeah. Oh, the October surprise. And, and it just, the timing of it didn't feel ideal at first, but it was really what we needed. And having the extra time with him, he was working some jobs, here and there, but having the extra time with him home as a family and then to focus on the business, because it was a very, intense period in that first few months. I mean, we're still really focused on it, but it doesn't feel as overwhelming. Like at times it definitely was, felt overwhelming because it's new and we didn't know anything. We didn't know the lingo. There's all these words that, we've listened to the podcast and now when I hear them, I just know it. For a long time, I was like, what does that one mean? But I love how you go back and you always explain it. So that's really helpful
Oh, thank you for saying that. Because I do get feedback sometimes from people. It's like, Jim, do you really have to explain what FBA is all the time and what, what Keepa is? And, for listeners who've heard 250 episodes, it can get a little redundant, but I always have in mind, I think this is coming from a pastor's house. My dad was a pastor and I would hear him, and being part of different churches, the saying is, if you haven't said it 40 times yet, you haven't said it. Meaning, if you think you can say it once and everyone's going to hear you, that's not how this thing works, man. The important things get repeated and you've got to be newbie friendly. You got to keep in mind, there's people who have never been around before. And so I try to always wear that hat of listening as if this was the first podcast episode anyone had ever heard and explain those acronyms, like you said, as frequently as I can. So thank you for giving me some recognition on that, because it's not easy to do to say these things literally hundreds of times in some cases. But if it's the first time someone hears it, that can be very meaningful. Yeah, and I'm glad it was for you as well. To me, it feels like a lot of people step away from a career because they feel like they're on a hamster wheel, not going anywhere, and they launch their own business, and it feels like the same thing. It's a wheel. It's just, I remember a friend who was making these Etsy products, very detailed and very time consuming. It took 20, 25 hours to get each one of these ready, and they were making some money, but they couldn't keep up with the orders. And they were just like, it's a grind. I've bought myself a job. I can't teach anyone else to do this. It's my craft. And this is as high as I'll ever go. But the thing about this business model is every single piece of it can be automated. You can put a good person in place. You can step to that next level. And it's a leadership journey. It's not going from one hamster wheel to another. It's a leadership journey is what you're really on at this point. And that's why we love this model so much. It's one of the reasons. Each new level it's another step in your leadership journey towards having a team. And maybe you do some consulting, maybe you do some coaching. Your time gets freer as you're making more money. It's the beautiful part of it.
Yeah, those were all the things that were really appealing, and we saw that immediately. We could see that in our friends who introduced us. We've been kind of checking in with them, and they would tell us how it's going. And we've mentioned it to a few people locally here. His sister actually set up her account and sent in her first shipment in like a week, 2 weeks, I don't know. And then her third weekend and got her first sale. So it was like,
that's awesome. Yeah, she's one of those people that like go get it, make it happen kind of thing, right?
The whole time we kept telling her, once you have time to look into this, you need to, and she just took it and ran with it. So we have another
friend
here who's doing it as well. And so just that loving, be able to give somebody an option to have something, teach a man to fish, if you will. But
and the fact that there's no benefit to us.
Right.
That's the biggest thing, is that we can give the opportunity to, my sister or our friend that was needing something. We're not making any money off of them doing anything. It's giving them the legitimate opportunity to change their family and to change the trajectory of their life forever.
Yes. And you're not charging money. It's like, hey, get in my downline. It sounds so self-serving, and you feel kind of almost awkward. Like I'm putting my friendships at risk here doing this.
That's kind of how it felt, like not on purpose, but they teach you that every single person you come into contact with, you got to share your opportunity. And it felt very disingenuine. Yeah. I really struggled. Like, it was very freeing to be able to let that go. And now I don't have to share my business with people. Whereas before I felt like, how do I work in sharing what I do?
Yeah. Oh, I love that story about your cat. Hey, let's talk about my network marketing business. Yeah. It's like, well, that's kind of awkward. Like, where'd you?
I got to do that. I tried to make it,
Oh, sure. I remember navigating that. I remember myself navigating that exact type of like, I got to be making new friends so I can tell them about the business. Does that make me disingenuous somehow? Does that make me not a good friend? If that's my intention. I mean, what are my intentions here? Questioning your own intentions constantly. I remember that.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
So I'd encourage you guys to document some of this. I don't know how much journaling you do. I don't do as much as I need to. I do a fair amount.
But well, I know that you've mentioned it a few times, and even the one I listened to of the firefighter guy, and you guys were talking about
Ted
that
recently.
I loved that one. That one was really. I love all of them. Every day, I'm like, did you listen to? Sometimes we listen together, sometimes we don't, and I feel like every time I'm like, I love that one. I love that one. I love their story. So I don't know, but that is something mentally I've been kind of made a note of, is starting to journal. So we haven't, but it's definitely something we will be.
Just to encourage you guys, and you will make more money more quickly if you journal. It's a fact. It's one of the most powerful things you can do, is just kind of document the journey, and have your kids even make note of the family dynamic. And, what do you guys think of now that dad's home? And I'm sure you guys have these kind of conversations, but just, document that stage of the journey and how it's impacting them and how they're involved in the business. Because I look back now on those little things that we did involving the kids back when the only thing they could really do to contribute was to slap little frog stickers on each box or whatever. Like, okay, we have an important job for you. All those boxes need frog stickers, and like, how many frog stickers, Daddy? Like, okay. But that's that practice of like, they weren't really contributing any value, but they were getting used to the process of our family serves others by doing this work. And then they step into bigger roles. And suddenly that kid who was, this big just a few years ago is now helping run our warehouse. And he's loves it. So there's little steps along the journey, just documenting them and enjoying them as a family. It sounds like you guys enjoy the journey quite a bit together. So kudos to you for that. But my job is to coach you further, encourage you. I would say, for some reason, I felt prompted just, man, you guys need to document this journey. It's going to benefit not only your family, but I think a lot of others as well. Because I very naturally, when I see someone at the start of a success journey, I know that the next phases will be new leadership roles. On stage, creating content, presenting, sharing how this business has changed your family dynamic. It improved our marriage, improved our relationships with our kids. We have new friends, and documenting that and sharing that. We're not in network marketing anymore, but sharing the journey is every bit as much important, because we are really fighting against the culture that pushes against a lot of these things and says it can't be done. They tell us as dads, Brett, hey, you can't be a good provider and a good husband and a good dad. You kind of got to pick one or two of those. You can't have all three. It's impossible. It'll never happen. We're saying, no, we're going to do all three. And I'm going to do it well. I'm going to be home. I'm going to be available. I'm going to build a great business. My kids are going to be part of it. I'm going to have a great relationship with my spouse. I'm going to make those things happen. Our culture needs to hear from guys like us that are doing it, and for families that are doing it like we are. How's it going?
Yeah. So our first kind of main sourcing is the Advanced Keepa training. That was an absolute mind-blowing game changer for us to be able to take all of that data and get all of the information. And then, we're going through and, we'd make these lists and try and narrow them down. And, well, maybe we should, change the settings here and change the settings there. And so we've been playing around with that and doing the storefront stalking. We're also looking, if we find a brand that we like, something that we know that we can get, then you can search by brand, and then you filter out all the criteria that you want and try and find something that's moving good for a good price. And so we've been doing a lot of that. And so I'll pull a whole sheet full of ASINS to check, and we start going through it. When I have time to sit down, I'll source through as much as I can, and then I'll highlight where I left off, and then she can come in and pick up wherever I left off. And then our 13-year-old son, he'll come in when he's done with his homework. He comes in here and he loves to just sit down and source.
Between, he tries to sneak in.
And so it's, teaching him, it's teaching all of our kids that we are doing something all together that is going to change our life. We talk all the time about when we get, to the point of, X, whatever, when we're at a point where we can go on a road trip, but we have to get our business there, to start, doing more online. We went through OA Simplified, which another mind-blowing game changer. And so we really want to get into tactical, and that's our next goal right now is to get into tactical arbitrage and learn it and get to where we can use it effectively. And then, at that point is where we think is where we'll probably start looking for a VA to start doing some of that for us. Yeah. And, utilizing a prep center. And, so we're teaching our kids all of these things about running a business, and, we're grinding it out right now. We're working hard, and, sometimes we're up late at night, and sometimes we're running boxes out at, we've got to get to go drop it off at Staples before they close at 9:00 because we got to get the shipment out. And yeah, so we're pushing as hard as we can and trying to get going as fast as we can, but also knowing that it's going to take some time and that we're not going as fast as other people. And sometimes we get caught up on somebody that, oh man, my second month I did 20,000, and you're going, what the, how in the world?
Yeah.
But I think that, we're super happy with where we're at to start off. I mean, $3,000 in our first month is, it's unbelievable.
That was with 2 FBA shipments sent in, one at the end of November, one in December, and then just the merchant fulfilled too.
Yeah.
So that was, and we were wanting to double in January, but I later realized we would have had to send in more in December because of the time it takes for them to get it on the shelves.
Right.
So we did send in 6 shipments in January, right?
Yeah,
6. And some of them still haven't hit the shelves yet, but January we did about 3,200.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, you guys are on a great trajectory. Hey, sorry for the interruption. We'll get back to the show in just a second, but I wanted to throw in a quick reminder about our fantastic sponsor, Payoneer. That's Payoneer. Payoneer.com/funding, up to $750,000 without a credit check. If you're an Amazon or Walmart seller, great terms. Go check out what they have to offer our community. If you're trying to grow your business and the thing holding you back is capital, they're a great place to look to solve that problem fast. Very flexible repayment terms as well, which is super cool. Payoneer.com. Check them out, guys. Back to the show.
And we were wanting to double in January, but I later realized we would have had to send in more in December because of the time it takes for them to get it on the shelves.
Right.
So we did send in 6 shipments in January, right?
Yeah.
6. And some of them still haven't hit the shelves yet, but January we did about 3,200.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, you guys are on a great trajectory.
Yeah. So the switch on that was that we had, and it's not that it was a false number or a false sense of success because it was incredible success, especially with the margins that we had on some of those items. But what January we did a little bit higher, but still about 3,000, but it was almost all FBA.
Right.
So we didn't have to, we touched it once. We got it and shipped it in. And so that was really cool. And really seeing that this is working, that it's happening, and all the things are happening the way that they're supposed to happen, and things get shipped out when they're supposed to go out, and we didn't have to physically do it, which is, the proof of concept and, the reassurance. But now it's just, okay, well, now we're going to send in 2 shipments a week.
Yeah, our goal for January was 1 a week. Now it's 2 a week.
Yeah.
And you'll be at daily shipments before long. And like you said, using a prep center, using a virtual assistant to help you find more inventory. You guys, I love that term, proof of concept. So few businesses ever get to that point where they have that celebration of, all we have to do now is scale.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this works. Add some commas and zeros. The system works exactly the same. You've got proof of concept. More money in equals more money out. More shipments equals more net profits at the end of the month. It's just a matter of how fast can we find more replens.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me go back and just make sure we didn't leave anyone behind, like I did for you guys when you were new around here. We talked about the Advanced Keepa training, which I have some exciting news as we're recording this today. It launches tomorrow. So by the time this podcast episode comes out, there will be new Advanced Keepa strategies. I'll send it to you guys. Just shoot me a quick text. We were corresponding by text today before we started, and I'll get you guys in no cost, okay, for this Advanced Keepa training part 2.
Thank you.
If you guys liked Advanced Keepa training part 1, which sounds like you've used quite a bit to find what you've done so far, there's 9 new strategies being added into that content. ProvenAmazonCourse.com/Keepa is the shortcut link. By the time this episode goes live, people can visit there and go grab it. If you're a Proven Amazon course student, you get a huge discount. My guess today, you guys get it free, obviously, like I said, but that's 9 new strategies. So the one that you talked about earlier, the storefront stalking, the kind of combing through, looking for opportunity, we go step by step. Brian Olson and Robin, his wife, they do a great job giving us 9 new, equally powerful, really cool strategies. You guys are going to love that. And you talked about the OA Simplified as well. I just want to make sure people realize that the course that's sold at OA Simplified, as in online arbitrage simplified.com, it's part of the Proven Amazon course now. It's one of the modules included inside the collection of content. So don't go buying it, get the Proven Amazon course, and you have it, along with all the other great training modules we have. When we launch a new module, sometimes we'll charge money for a short period of time, for sometimes 6 to 9 months or so, and then we'll add it in for free. But we always give our Proven Amazon course students a great discount during that window of time as well, if they don't want to wait. So that gets us up to speed on those courses that you guys were talking about. I'd love to hear what your exact criteria is for finding a good replen, and how you identify, what are you looking for? And maybe we can play around with that a little bit and just kind of give you guys some ideas to maybe make life a little easier or expand on your opportunity. So one of the two of you, talk me through that if you don't mind. What are you looking for?
Okay, so in the beginning, I think we were looking for, using Keepa, and we have RevSeller for, factoring the price and all the fees and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So with Keepa, we were looking for 15 or more drops. And I don't even know how we were finding stuff in the beginning, because before we did the Advanced Keepa training, I think we would just pick a local store, and we would pick a brand. And I think we would just kind of rabbit trail that way. Or I would just look at an item and then just go off of that. But it was 15 drops. And, we're looking ideally a 40% ROI, or return on investment, and 20%.
The buy box history being your price.
Yeah, and I would look sometimes off of the buy box, or I would look at you can see all the sellers and what they're selling at. And I would pick a price that's, seemed like it was fast moving. If it was more, 20, 25 drops, I would say, okay, it doesn't, and you can see on Keepa the buy box history. I love that. I just did that more recently. But I would just kind of gauge, like, do we have to go with that buy box price, or is, you say that they sell, sometimes higher than the buy box, and it's very true. We've seen that over and over again. So it wasn't always going off of the buy box. I would kind of play around with the price a little bit there. if
And
it
I see a
was,
lot of times new replens sellers get very obsessed with the buy box, and sometimes they never break away from that. So it's good to hear
yeah,
you say that that's only one small factor in how you
yes.
do this. Well, anytime I hear someone say something like, I've looked at hundreds of things and I can't find anything that deliver work, and like you're buy box focused, you don't understand how this works.
Yeah. And it was hard to find things in the beginning. And then we weren't ungated in grocery. And it took 5 times sending in our documents, which that I posted in the group, what am I doing wrong? And we called our friend and, we figured out like you have to highlight this, circle that, make sure Amazon really sees what you're sending in. And
Right.
then we were able to pass that information on to his sister and she got ungated in grocery right away, which was awesome.
Good for you.
I'll share that with her. Because we didn't know the first time. And so, but once we were ungated in grocery, and then really as we were sending things in, now, things we get ungated in items really quickly, which, that opens up more doors to options to, be able to sell things. But
I love to hear you say that. So you're getting those little prompts that says, hey, you're actually uneligible to sell this. Would you like to apply? And you click the button and boom, it falls open, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it says because of your performance history or
isn't that a great thing to say?
And so, it's like,
to
and
see
we did
like,
our first review.
they like me.
Feedback, which felt really great as well. So
yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, so as far as what we look for, we want to be making like $4 or $5. It would be kind of what we look for. If it's something that we can find easily and it's selling, I don't know that we really go lower than $3. I don't think we really have one.
Profit. Yeah.
$3 profit. Sorry.
Yep.
So we look for that $5 range because that way it gives us wiggle room, And recently, though, after watching OA Simplified, hearing Leah Maudlin talk about what she looks for, which we looked at seller count, but we didn't really look at it. I don't know. I think what we were looking for was that drop of like, okay, the brand might be kicking people off of this.
Yeah.
So stay away from those. Like we knew that was a red flag. But her saying, when you see the seller count kind of doing this, or like, what did she say? It's like a party's going on. She's like, if it looks like there's a party here. And so I kind of have that in my mind. Like, this looks like a flat, like me, this is boring. Nothing's happening here. Maybe not go with that one. But if there's a lot of action with the seller count, that's something that you want to take into consideration as well. So that's another thing that we look at.
Because oftentimes that tells us if it's bouncing between, say, 15 and 35 sellers. And it's just like,
they're selling out.
There's a lot of people selling out constantly of that item. It's moving, maybe even faster than the Keepa chart itself is telling you. Yeah. So it looks like a party. I love that. Leah has some great one-liners. It looks like a party on the seller count. That can be a very positive indicator for an ASIN that you can jump on and well above buy box. And at some point, because of a geographical advantage that your inventory has, it's going to be sitting right where someone needs it to be sitting in a zip code near them, and they're going to snag it at a great net margin for you.
Had a few good ones like that this week that were $5-10 over the buy box, and it's great.
That's beautiful. It's so fun to make that happen, isn't it? Yeah, and that's the game. You find these ASINs, and a lot of people think the game is finding ASINs that no other sellers have found yet, so I can go in at the historical buy box price and take advantage of that until some other sellers find it, and then I'm gone. You can certainly play the game that way, but that opens you up to, I would say, maybe 5% of the total great replens that are out there. And that's just a real struggle. If that's your only strategy, is I've got to find ASINs that there's no other sellers or just a few other sellers, and I can make great money at the historical buy box price. Yeah, there's some opportunity there, but not much. The real opportunity is kind of stuff we're talking about where, the ASINs I get the most excited about now are the ones where there's a lot of sellers on it. And it's really selling fast. And we can go in, pick our price in the middle of the pack and just wait. I'm not going to go in 50 or 100 units deep, but I'll go 3-5 units and sit there and see them pop out once every few days at a great margin. There's a lot to be said for that approach to this business. It sounds like you guys have had a little success as well early on with kind of going in. So those ones that are selling for well above buy box, do you happen to know offhand how many drops per month you were seeing on Keepa for those? I would imagine they were faster movers.
Well, lately, so the last month, I think we set when we do our Keepa what is it called? Or the filters. We've been doing 50 drops or more.
Yeah.
Is what we're looking for instead of that 15, 20.
I think that was a bit of a mindset shift in, well, there's too many people on this. We don't want to, we're going to be competing with everybody and their cousin. And we just, let's find something with very few sellers that's dropping, 15 or 20 drops a month is good. And we can, like you say, you can, multiply that a couple times probably. So that's kind of, we were trying to be really conservative. And then the things that have been selling, they're, we're on listings with 40, 50, 60 other sellers,
right?
And everybody is winning, and it's I love that, and that it's that we've had a few tankers, and those aren't fun. But again, the beauty of the model, we're only into it 5 units of a 6-pack of this item. That was it. We saw it, and it was a killer ASIN, and buy box was great. And everything looked just perfect. And so we went out and we bought, 30 of these things because sent in 5 6-packs. And then must have hit a list. I don't know. But we're sitting on, so then everybody just started tanking the price.
I have not sold one. And it was one of the first things we sent in. So
yeah. And how many drops per month was that one?
It was like 60 drops at least.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that we haven't sold any, but I kept lowering the price after a month, lowering a little, lowering. Now we just matched the featured offer, and we just want to get out of it.
We're trying to get out of it because we're, that's money that we can spend on something that's going to make us money.
Yeah, just get your money back, and maybe you lost a couple bucks per.
Yeah, we'll lose a few dollars on each one, but
yeah, that was the coaches called that they were talking about that just this week, that if it's sometimes you have to take a loss to get something, but you have money to spend on something that is going to make you profit.
It happens. And it's nice that your worst case scenario is, you drop the price down and you break even, or you lose maybe a couple dollars, but you certainly don't lose your full investment because people are buying this stuff.
Yeah.
And we don't have a garage full of this stuff. So
yeah, we've pretty much stuck to the rule of 3 to 5, except for one that we were doing FBM. We've got like 20 sitting over there.
Yeah.
But I think it'll come back. I think it'll come back. I don't know.
They always do. So good ASINs become great again. They always become great again. And unless they, for some reason, get expired or, shut off, the product, gets turned off at Amazon for some reason. But good ASINs become good ASINs again. Because a lot of times what'll happen, we talk about price tanking, and I'm not a fan of that phrase. I think it paints an inaccurately negative image of seller behavior. But if you get a bunch of uninformed sellers kind of all chasing a product down into the basement, they're not going to stay there. They're going to burn through their inventory, learn their painful lesson, come back wiser a couple months later. They're certainly not going to go buy 1,000 more units and lose money on them. So unless they have a unique advantage where they can source for less money, that group of people they're going to wise up. And that ASIN will be attractive again. Customers, I would almost argue that these price tanking scenarios are good for those of us who recognize the opportunity in it. Because what's happening is the price drops, customers flock to Amazon, that ASIN gets even more popular, but now it's no longer available at that same low price that it was when all these people on the buy list all chased each other down to, losing money. They've all moved on. Mm-hmm. But here's this ASIN still sitting here as a reasonable opportunity for people who know how to actually make a profit. Mm-hmm. So price tankers, put them on your calendar, check back with them 60 days later. Quite often, they're big winners again that you can go after. Nice and slow, But the lesson you learn painfully is you don't want to go too deep on any of these.
Right.
Right. So you've got about a month's worth at the most. And when you're testing, you don't have a month's worth. When you're testing, you just have a couple units and see how it goes. And if for some reason it doesn't work, you drop your price, get your money back, go find some other ones.